Hello everybody, this is Jehoiadak Maccabeus Everyday Survival, and hope everybody's doing well out there. I'm doing pretty good. I've been thinking about doing a video about this for a while, about the way I was raised that helps create the mindset I have to be a survivalist today. Zombie Farmer done a video yesterday, I believe, called Shit Hit the Fan Living, SHTF Living, and basically covered some of the things so similar to what I wanted to share. And so this is going to be a VR to Zombie Farmer. If you haven't checked this video out, I'll try to put a link in the description or somewhere. If not, check him out. Before I get started on it, everybody's heard of the Foxfire books. I've got them. I've practiced several things in them, a lot of the things. And I'm sure everybody's seen the videos, the ads for this book, The Lost Ways. I just got my copy in the mail Monday. So I'll be doing some reviews on it over the next year and trying out some of the things that's in there. It seems like a pretty good book. This is a real good book for canning. It covers more than canning, how to preserve the food you grow naturally. It's called Stocking Up. It's by the editors of Organic Gardening and Farming and another channel, Rebel Canners. She's very sharp when it comes to canning. And she said that this is actually in its second reprint, maybe, I think she said. And she uses it. This is another real good book for, this goes beyond the canning quite a bit. The Canning, Freezing, and Smoking of Meat, Fish, and Game by Wilbur F. Eastman Jr., a Garden Way Publishing book. Both of them have been very helpful in my lifestyle over the years. Sure my camera don't fall over there. But anyway, I'll get at it and tell you my story. My dad was a traveling preacher, an independent fundamental Baptist preacher, and we traveled and moved around a whole lot when I was growing up. Went to a lot of different schools. I was homeschooled some. Dad bought an old school bus in the mid-70s, and he gutted it and turned it into, well, he used it for moving first. We went from South Carolina to Iowa, and, is that right? Yeah, from South Carolina to Iowa, and then went from Iowa to Tennessee, then from Tennessee back to South Carolina over a number of years there. But he bought the bus to move in when moved from Iowa to Tennessee. Yeah, we didn't move back to South Carolina. We moved to Tennessee from Iowa. Anyway, when we moved from Tennessee back to South Carolina, we lived in that bus, and Dad had a big old huge canvas tent. It was huge. You could probably park 3 of my Blazers in it. That's how big it was. But we lived at a campground for several months, and as a family there were 6 of us kids and Mom and Dad, and they were both good parents. Growing up, things went kind of sideways after I was when I was in my adolescence, right before I turned a teenager, and Mom went astray. But up to that point, they were both good parents. We ate a lot of cornbread and beans. My mom loved cornbread and buttermilk, and I'm pretty fond of it myself. I remember Dad worked at a bread factory one time, a bakery, and there was loaves of bread back then that when it would go outdated or whatever, it was still edible, but they would slice the loaf of bread, and Dad was always bringing stuff like that home from work. Um, we were pretty poor, and Dad didn't make a lot of money preaching. He was a real preacher. He was a pastor of a couple churches, but he wasn't like some fake pastor living up on top of a mountain somewhere hiding from society. He was actually out spreading the gospel of Christ, and out amongst people, the ghettos, and we were missionaries to the Catawba Indians for a few years. And if you've ever been on a lot of the reservations, there are a lot of shanties and pretty poor. And Dad just dove, and Mom both, they dove right in with the people no matter where we was at, and helped people, and didn't look down on people for being poor. We were poor too. Shoot, I had holes in my pants and holes in my shoes, and wore a lot of third-hand hand-me-down type stuff. And up until the family split up, we were pretty happy as a family, and we were fairly close for the most part. It was probably not quite as good as the Waltons, but we had a pretty decent family when I was a young child. And Mother took off with another man when I was 16. She had indiscretions in her life when I was 12, and anyway, she took off with another man and left Dad. Took my two younger brothers, and they orchestrated things, manipulating, lying. My dad never had his visiting time with my two younger brothers after the time they left. And after like 3 years, he quit paying child support, which gave them ammunition to go to a lawyer and say, well, we're going to adopt, the man was going to adopt my brothers, because the child support hadn't been paid. The ultimatum letter said to either pay up all the back child support, they let it get several years behind, or you can sign over adoption papers. And my dad went $15,000 in debt fighting for custody of my two brothers, and he was awarded joint custody and was supposed to have, hold on, supposed to, I just found an antenna. But anyway, I didn't mean to get off into the drama of it. We knew what it was to do without, and not always have the best of house. One time Dad started a church, and it was in an old little storefront building in Knoxville, Tennessee. He used the main room, which was probably about 4 times the size of my Blazer, for an auditorium, and then it had a room off to the side that was like a bedroom with a bathroom. And we lived in that church for several months anyway. I don't remember exactly time-wise. Only had cold water. I've lived pretty austere many times in my life. I've been on 3 different continents, and in many other countries. Several, shouldn't say many. That's just my whole life, I've got to see how poor people have always lived. The last 5 years I've been back to my place here on the river. I come back, and I had a tiny house on a trailer that a guy had gave me to tear down off of the trailer, and he didn't do a real good job building the tiny house. And I made a deal with him to bring the trailer down here, because I didn't have my building quite framed up, and I said, I'll raise it up off the trailer down there and set it down on some posts and bring your trailer back. Well, when I went to raise it up, it was 24 foot long, and he had the triple plate that he had put between the downstairs and the loft was 8 foot 2x4s all stacked together to make up 24 foot, instead of staggering and overlapping and building a beam out of them. It was just like 3 individual walls, and since there was wall board on, I didn't know that when I went to raise it up. I took it all loose from the trailer and everything, started raising it up, and it just folded up on me. So I ended up tearing it down, and I used the insulation off it and material out of it to my 3rd-story loft in my building. Some of you who've been around a while have seen the top of it probably in some of my videos. Got it boxed in good enough to live in that first winter. Built me a tiny stove out of a 100-pound propane cylinder, and there's a video of it clear back beginning of this channel. And I'm not real good at always talking to the camera. Some days I feel kind of foggy. I've had 6 concussions, and some days I talk okay. I took up preaching for a couple years. I felt the calling, and it's just kind of like YouTube. People don't want to hear the truth. Even in Baptist churches, they didn't want to hear the true truth. And I just, that's not my calling. I wasn't a pastor. I was just preaching. And now I just kind of preach to everybody about everything in my daily life. If somebody's got time to stop and listen and has an ear to hear, talking. That's how I build my mags and tribes, or whatever everybody wants to call it. That's how I get to know people. And I probably missed some points I'll think of later that I should have said in here. But check out Zombie Farmer's channel. He's a real good guy. Showing him some love and some support. I think that's all I got, people. This is my pocket hatchet. Some of you have seen it. I made that out of an old double bit axe. Cut it down, hedge handle. Made the sheath out of a pair of old leather biker boots. Top out of it. Nothing fancy. Used hog rings to snap it together. Hog rings work pretty good for a lot of stuff like that. We have some deals that are similar for belts on a baler, a hay baler, that snap together like that. It's on old balers. I'm sure they don't use them anymore. But anyway, that's all I got. I'm going to cut it short here. Probably ought to get stocked up, people. It's not trying to be negative, but I think it's just going to keep getting worse and worse. Seems to be a push to get rid of the petrodollar. Risks of attacks against our grid and other infrastructures. These cyber attacks, they can hit your electric, they can hit your water. There's been 2 or 3 times in the last couple of years that cyber attacks were done to water plants, and they changed the parameters for the chemicals that are put into water, and the amounts, if they're changed and put in the wrong order, can do people harm. I've heard of transportation being hacked, railroads and buses and subways, financial. The financial, that's a big one. There's another one. Transportation, financial. Yeah, I don't remember. Most people watch my videos know what I'm saying. I got some very smart subscribers. Some of you have been around a long time, and I want to thank all of you who've been here. I've never asked anybody to like, share, or subscribe me. And those that have, I want to thank you. I'm at 446 today. It's a blessing. I like growing organically. I don't need to have everybody on my channel. I just want the right people on my channel. Y'all stay safe and have a good day, and I'll shut up and get out of your hair.